Hey everyone, it's Ardmark here, and wow, we've got some juicy stuff today. They've actually come out and they're talking about MMR. We've got a development blog about the matchmaker and competitive, and they're actually talking about it. So I'm excited to see what they've got to say about the MMR system. I'm sure this is in response to the community being upset about matchmaking the beginning of season 2 where you were surprised you were ranked down, your skill rank was down, and many people have been upset, the community has been upset. I've seen creators talk about it. So I think this isn't a hey, let's share some information with the community out of the goodness of our heart, or let's help them by showing them how it works. I think this is like, okay, we had a horrible response from how we dealt with season 2. Folks are upset. We need to talk to them. All right. Saying that, let's get in there. Hello, heroes. In the first part of our 2-part deep dive on matchmaking and competitive, we'll look at how matchmaking works under the hood and answer some outstanding questions around how MMR is determined and factored into the system. Okay. That's great. 2 parts. Okay, so they're going deep. This is deep dish. Okay. Ultimately, the goal of Matchmaker is to create as fair matches as possible across all game modes. We know matchmaking can be a source of frustration, especially in competitive. And we'd like to recognize it doesn't always feel like it's meeting its goal. Wait a minute. Especially in competitive. I mean, I think everybody, okay, let me not say everybody, that's a strong one. I think many of us can agree that matchmaking feels incredibly better in quick play, to where I don't think it's a source of frustration. But yes, this is the problem right here. Okay, let's keep going. In order to address your thoughts, we need to dissect the matchmaker and competitive system separately before going into how they affect one another. In part one, we talk about how the matchmaker works, some of the challenges we've faced, and some of the ways we've started to tackle those issues. Okay, they face challenges, we face challenges. Okay, that matchmaker is a challenge. Internal matchmaking rating. MMR. Let's go. Our matchmaker is designed to create balanced matches. To do that, we need some approximation of each player's skill. Sure, basics. Everyone has an internal matchmaking rating, MMR. That's a numerical value to describe your to describe your skill relative to everyone else. However, MMR isn't an absolute value, meaning your MMR can change even if your personal skill stays the same. Okay, I think this needs this meat right here needs to be digested a little bit. So basically, MMR. Maybe some of you know, maybe some of you don't. It's a hidden rating, right? You don't see it in the game. There's nothing in the game that tells you it. The only hints you have to your MMR in game is the matchmaking. If you know, the matchmaking kind of could give you hints if you could really understand the players you're playing with. This means right here, the MMR isn't an absolute value. Is that it shifts relative to everyone else's skill. Your skill, you could get better, but it's better relative to everyone, right? As the game matures, the players in the game will naturally get better at that game. The skill is an upward curve. It could be a slow one. You could be in the lower tiers, but even in the lower tiers, you're getting better as you put time into the game. Gold from 3 years ago or 5, it won't look the same as gold today. Okay. This could indicate the general population is getting better or worse compared to you. Okay, yeah, exactly what I said. I'm glad they have it here. You can see this in the example below that displays MMR in quick play, player MMR, with most of us right around the middle of the curve. Wait. Yeah, this is the middle of the curve. This is the highest point. But look, the highest point is at a negative 0.5 MMR. Wow. Ideally, someone correct me if I'm wrong. Ideally, don't they want this to end up here? Don't they want the peak to be right in the center? I don't know. I could be wrong, but this is very interesting. So the peak is actually not in the center. And now we know MMR ranges from -6 to 6. Current distribution of quick play MMR. Your MMR will rise over time if you improve your skill and win more games against players of your current MMR level. All our game modes, including competitive, only look at MMR when forming a match. We never use your outward-facing skill tier or division to form matches. So what's the point? Like, what's the point of this? I feel the sodium rising here. What is the point? Is there any way that we could have this, the MMR? You don't have to tell us our MMR, but can we have that translated to something we could see or have an idea of? Because let's say you're gold. Gold's you know, you're right there. And then your friend's gold, right? And you're like, oh man, we're equal skill. But are we? But are we? The secret MMR. But are we? You know, my friend's he's a 0.5 and I'm a 0. He's actually better than me. But our rating shows we're the same. So what's the point of it? What do I use the rating for? Is what I ask it. It's not determining my skill, my actual skill relative to everybody else. Just what we talked about, right? This is your skill relative to everybody else, right? It's not determining my actual skill. It's just placing me in a ranking. It's I guess it depends. The ranking is just a result of RNG matches where you play games matched with people that are represented correctly at their skill level, represented incorrectly at their skill level, and maybe that skill level tilts in your favor or against your favor. And when it goes against your favor, I guess the only way to really raise it is to push past or play above your level to make that difference to win those. Okay, that sounded complicated, but I hope you followed me there. But you get it. We play to level up, to rank up, so that we could feel good about our accomplishments and skill. But this is saying that maybe I just hit Masters, but there's some Diamond players that have a higher MMR and technically would be better than me. You know, so it's weird. It's just weird. At least from what I understand. If I am wrong about this, feel free to comment below and let me know. You know, I guess this is why they're doing this, to help folks like me that are getting confused. But here we go. Let's keep going. We only adjust your MMR after you win or lose a match, or if you come back after not playing for a long time. Your MMR is unaffected when we lower your rank at the beginning of a season, and everyone in your matches has a similar MMR as you. Okay, so your MMR is unaffected when we lower your rank. Garbage. Why? What is the point? You're Overwatch, real quick opinion here. Overwatch is more about trying to make you feel good to keep you there than to, you know, to cushion you into feeling good to try to keep you there. And I think that's a mistake. And real quick, I'm just going to say this. The worst you could feel means how good you could feel. Oh, you can't see my hands. The worst the worst you could feel determines how good you could feel. And by the same weight, the same distance from the center. You know, if you can only feel a little bad and you're not constantly feeling bad about your losses and feeling that pain of losing, this is a competitive game. If you don't feel that pain, then you're not going to feel as good. You understand the stakes intuitively. You know, oh, that's not a big deal if I lose, then it's not a big deal if I win, you know? It's that, you know, man, I got it. You know, yes, because you didn't want to feel that pain of losing. I feel like they're hand in hand. The weight of one side affects the other. And if you cushion the game to try to protect you from feeling bad, anxiety, all these things too much, then you're also gonna affect probably the dopamine. I'm not a biologist, but I'm gonna go out on the limb and say that, you know, you're gonna, the dopamine, the good feeling, you're definitely, it's not gonna be as big. You know, hard fought always feels good. Okay, let's keep going. Initial ranked matches can feel turbulent because many players return at the beginning of a season, and anything that changes player population is going to affect the matchmaker. Fair, fair, fair. It's also important to remember that our teammates are human. We don't always perform the same from game to game, or even team fight to team fight. This inherent variance in our individual performance means that the matchmaker needs the results. The matchmaker needs the results, sorry. The matchmaker needs the results of as many gamers as possible to get an accurate representation of your skill. Yes, correct. I think this is something we could all understand and is common. The more data, the more accurate the prediction, right? Skill variation within groups. Okay, let's go. I know many of us play stacked. I do. Yeah, and playing with friends is fun. We love seeing you group up and have fun together because we believe Overwatch 2 is a game best shared with friends. Bull. We love seeing you grouped up. I don't think so. I don't think you do. I think you're okay with it in arcade and quick play. I don't think you believe this in comp. But let's keep going. Grouping up does, however, influence the matchmaker in a few different ways. When players group together, there's a possibility that the group has a larger skill difference than a match we typically like to make. Those of you at the very highest levels might notice these skill differences more. Two, because there's far fewer players at the very top of the MMR curve. I get it. Yeah, I mean, you're creating a disparity that now has to be, there can be a disparity that now has to be made up, and now you have to extend the curve, right, is what I understand from this. We can't always avoid these type of matches, but we can make them feel better. These matches can often feel imbalanced if they create situations where there's a large disparity of skill, exactly, within a single role between the two teams. I think I know where they're going. For example, we might match a highly rated tank against a comparatively lower rated tank. I'm glad you said that, devs. So even if the overall match is balanced, the competition between tanks feels very one-sided. Okay, this right here. Okay, this is a 5. This isn't all the roles. BS, cut it. Right, this is a tank thing, and the reason is, look, yes, it's part of all the roles, but it's highlighted strongly with the tank role. Why? Because we're in 5v5, and sometimes we forget the consequences of going to one tank. The roles need to be balanced within each other, okay? So that one doesn't feel more fun to play, one doesn't feel more impactful. So the roles have to be balanced. Now, before you could balance the tank role versus the support role with 2 players on each end, right? So you could adjust their strength, their power. Let's say their power. You adjust their power to the same level, right? You adjust their power to the same level, and then you take this level and you just divide it in 2, right? Divide it in 2. And those 2 need to add to the same. I mean, we know it doesn't work that way, but ideally that's kind of what they want to do. So, but now the tank doesn't get divided in 2, right? It stays up here, but it still has to match DPS and support up here so that each role doesn't feel off, less impactful. Since tank doesn't get divided, okay? Tank doesn't get divided. That one player gets his full power. And then if you compare that one player to one player in the other role, right? They have half that power. So the tank counting for 2 players, when there's this disparity in the tank role, it's a huge difference. And there's not this whole power level for each tank. Now let's say these are 2 tanks on opposite teams, right? if one's way lower, there's nothing that could be done. There's not another player here. You know, the gap is already a full one. If it was one player that's better than the other player, it would be half normally, right? And then there's another set of two players and it'll balance out somewhere in the middle. I know I've made that extra complicated, but I hope you're following me. I got to get better at paint. Maybe I should have done this at paint. Maybe next time. But let's keep going. Okay, we've got changes coming to the game over the next few months, which will dramatically reduce these disparities. We'll try to find pairs of similarly rated players in each role when making a match. For support and damage roles, we have 2 slots. Each player will be paired with one player on the opposite team. Okay, yeah. See how, look right here, they're basically saying it's easier. That's all they're saying. It's like I said, they're just saying that it's easier. Of course, one guy is low, then we'll get the higher guy, and you know, like I said, normally it's being split in half, but as long as they add up to the same power, same skill, you know, I'm gonna stop doing this. As long as they add up, you know, the one makes up for the other, and they end up being as impactful as the other 2 roles in that match, it could be okay, and you have more room to work with. And you know what? You know, just talking about it, it's the same thing with balancing, right? Balancing, it's you know, heroes could compensate for each other, and there could be certain synergies. And so some heroes that might not be good might work with another hero that's good. There's just more. It's easier to balance. It's easier to matchmake when you could play with 2 knobs instead of 1. Okay. There will still sometimes be matches with a large range of differently skilled players, but in these cases, the 2 teams will be more like mirror images of each other. All right. However, even with these improvements, the cop out, right? Hey man, you know, we're doing this, but don't, you know, if it's not exactly perfect, there's always, you know, it's we're working on it type thing. Like we're trying this, but the what's it called? I forgot. It has a name. It's the something clause, but here we go. However, even with these improvements, there will always be times when we make matches that have a skill disparity that isn't reflected in MMRs because some players in the match aren't calibrated. We've seen this much more frequently since Overwatch 2 launched, and we welcome a large influx of new players. Okay, this is fair here. Setting up new players for success. Who cares? Who cares about new players? Just kidding. Just kidding. All right, let's go over this. Overwatch 2 is a lot to learn. It's a fast team-based hero shooter where players juggle the gameplay of traditional FPS, the unique abilities of a diverse hero roster, and many different types of game modes and maps. Let's make a commercial. We've tackled the learning curve from multiple directions to help ease new players into Overwatch 2. The most visible change was adding the first-time user experience at launch, but there's also an invisible change we've been working on in the background. Better matchmaking for new players. All right, cool. We noticed that new players were losing their initial matches much more than they should have, and this trend wasn't leveling out enough by the time they played many more matches. The win rates of new players should be normally distributed, meaning most should be hovering around a 50% win rate, but instead, the distribution has skewed, with new players losing at higher rates. Okay, so basically, new players aren't settling in as they thought they would. This change is more difficult since the matchmaker has no initial data on the player's skill when they enter their first match. We've tried to remedy this issue with 2 distinct changes. First, new players initially started at an MMR value slightly below average. You could think of it in terms of skill tiers around the lower division of silver. The lower divisions of silver. This was already below the center point of the player's base MMR distribution, but new players' win rate was still too low. We've since lowered the starting MMR to a rating equivalent to Bronze 5 and instantly saw huge improvements of new players with a sub 40 win rate. Basically here, they judged our skill wrong. And the low elo players, they basically thought you sucked more than you did. They basically thought that you sucked more than you did. Like, we mentioned earlier, right, when we were talking about MMR, over time, everyone's skill goes up. And even silver players, even though they might be below, right? They might be below the center. They're probably way more skilled than they were 5 years ago, and they were probably still in the same position, a little bit below, the big massive players. A brand new play. This game is not a new game. You're getting brand new players 5 years in. What's it? 5, 6 years, whatever it is in. This is not a brand new game, and you can't just place them there. I think that they realize this quickly. Now, with that said, even at the bottom, I would think that there's a problem at the bottom. Now, I want to say that because if you put everybody at the bottom, there's going to be players that a 5-year bronze veteran is still not going to equate to a brand new player. Does that make sense? And it's just going to create all these weird skill differences. And also, as they're going up through the lower, let's say you start at bronze 5 and you're bronze 3 now. As you're going and maybe you don't belong there at all, you're going to be in there for a little bit and you're going to be hindering the matchmaking process when it tries to make a balanced match. All right, let's keep going. All right. If you're playing with or against a new player in Overwatch 2, these games should now broadly be fair. Okay, they just found basically all that to say we found the right spot to put brand new players. We picked the wrong spot where we thought they should be. Now we picked the right spot and it's working out. The second change we implemented was aimed at new players who did not belong at the initial MMR. Initial matches are weighed differently than standard matches because they increase and decrease MMR at a much higher rate than usual. We want to adjust a player's initial MMR as quickly as possible because until their MMR is more properly calibrated, we're not able to make fair matches. That's exactly what I was talking about. When they're moving, how long does it take you to get out? The longer you're there, the more you're going to cause imbalanced matchmaking. So basically, they're saying that they're going to make it more volatile. So you will move quickly through those. And I guess it will realize, is it a number of matches? How does it know when you've settled in? Let's keep reading. However, this still meant that it took several games for players to get to where they belonged. This is true. I don't know if you could fix that. To improve this, we added a streak modifier system that tracks a moving average of a player's win rate. When a player wins more than 50% of their matches, we start to increase their MMR. Okay? This is still about making it more volatile. So basically, okay, you're a new player, you start with a multiplier, I guess, and it will multiply positive and negatively depending on how you're winning. So you're gonna increase faster. I guess your MMR or your skill rating will go up faster or slower. And this was in Overwatch 1, And then also there's a streak bonus added to that. So not only if you're winning, your SR is going faster, your MMR, your skill rating, skill tier, whatever it's called, is going up faster, but you're gonna get an even bigger boost to that if you're starting to accumulate a large win rate. If you're okay, it doesn't say a win streak, but it looks like if you're above 500 here, you're probably going to get a bonus as well. This levels out once we see the player's MMR value as them joining fair matches. So basically you're at 60% and you'll fly through until you start getting to 50%, which corresponds to 50 win rate. Okay, yeah, exactly. With this change, we've seen that new and returning players reach a 50% win rate with much fewer matches than before. Okay, they have a system to, I get it. I think this is basic stuff that should be standard, right? I feel. I mean, we've been doing Overwatch for a while now, so I think they should be standard. What I think is that they should segment. I think they should segment um, the new players for a little bit, because I still think there's something weird with placing a brand new player their first comp matches with 5-year bronze veterans, and also sometimes the truth is that sometimes players are here more for the fun than the higher you go, right? The higher you go, the more competitive things are. If you're closer to top 500, those players, they're about winning, and they want to win. You know, the game's fun all the way through, but how much your competitiveness and how serious it is and how much value you put into it seems to go up the higher you go. So when you're at the bottom, the attitudes of these players, right, is probably they don't care that much, especially if they've been there for a very, very long time. Yeah, they want to win, but they don't care that much, and they'll might play in a way that sometimes is doesn't help win. I hope you understand what I'm saying. So, do you really want to drop new players into that environment? I think they should be segmented for a bit until they understand the game enough to get in here and quickly, even faster, because they've experienced the game in their own pool, right? To quickly get in, and I know they do the quick play, but it's not the same. It's not the same. When you get in here, you gotta experience the weight of this is comp. You're playing with other players that want to win and understand that responsibility. That responsibility is a topic for another video, maybe, but another video. But there's a weight, and that's my concern with that. I hope they segment them for a little bit, maybe even a rank. Call it wood or something, a skill tier rating that you could only get into when you're new, and you gotta climb through that a little bit. I know it's not a perfect system. I can see some pitfalls with it, but I'm not sure just dropping them at the bottom's the best either. Okay. The faster we could calibrate a new player's MMR, the fewer unmatches we'll create. Not just for the player, but for the 9 other players. Aw, caring, so caring. Okay, overall, we think this was a huge improvement to the new player experience, which in turn should result in better matches for everyone. For the new players, there will be more information on updates in the future, but until then, please keep sharing your feedback. It's our most valuable development resource. I think the data is, but that's, I'm flattered. Final thoughts. We're continuing to analyze data, tune values, and evaluate more changes to the matchmaker. Our highest hope is to make a match that feels fun for everyone, even the team that loses. I know many of you are going to be, who has fun when they lose? Mark, who has fun when they lose? Look, no cap. Some of the best games are the closest games. And it hurts when you lose those close games, but you're not angry. You're just hurt, or I don't like using the word sad. You just feel the loss. I think that's a unique feeling, right? The feel of loss, because you're trying to win. You're disappointed that you didn't win, but you're not frustrated or angry at the game. You know the match went into overtime on the last round. Everybody was doing everything they could. People were playing. Everybody was equally matched. This guy got the edge. That guy got the edge. That player got the edge. She got the edge. Everything feels close. You know it's fair. You could tell when it's fair. And even though you're going to feel that pain of losing, that loss feeling, you're not going to be upset. So I think this is the best thing they could do. And obviously, I think they've always tried to do this. This isn't new, right? This is the basic goal for, I think, any competitive game. And we'll see if they could do it. They've been at it for a while. You'd think they'd have a better grasp of it by now. We feel strongly that the best way to achieve this is to make matches that are as fair and balanced as possible. Yes. Yes, that's right. Close matches happen when the matches are as fair and balanced as possible. Okay, my final thoughts. It's good that they've decided to share this. I do think that we forced their hand. I wish it would be. I've mentioned the other creators talk about it, but I wish they'd be more proactive than reactive. Just start sharing. And then when something like this happens, you could be, look, we made a mistake on what we shared earlier, but we did kind of talk about it. Okay. You know, I know not everyone's going to like your direction, and I get that. But I think there's ways to finesse what you're saying. I know that sounds funny, but there's or to look, they're telling us a lot about MMR here, but they didn't really tell us what is actually affecting your MMR. Maybe that's not fair, right? But this still feels better than knowing nothing. No, we don't. I don't know. Maybe what stats of mine? How does it know? Like what am I doing in the game other than winning? What am I doing in the match that's affecting my MMR? There's nothing about that here, right? I understand it could be exploited if they tell us. But by the same token, if it could be exploited if they tell us, then it's probably not a good system, right? A system that can't be exploited is probably a better one. I think that's just logic, right? And then if it can't be exploited, then it could be shared. It makes it even better. It goes up twofold, right? Can, you know, to be fair, can a system like that exist where they could tell us exactly what affects it and it not be exploited? I don't know. But I think it's just logic that the more they could tell us about it, the more they could tell us about actual MMR means that the system's actually better, is basically what I'm trying to say. But I am glad they shared this with us. I'm looking forward to part 2. And I hope that they take... I hope... Okay, out of all this, I hope that they really think about what we want as players in terms of our skill rating. Right? Yeah, we want to have fun games, but this is comp. It's not just about fun, it's about the competition, right? It's competitive. And you need to give us our competition rewards or satisfaction by showing us more accurately how we're doing in this competitive ladder. I think that just makes sense. You know, having an MMR, you know, there's no skill rating in quick play, so it doesn't matter, right? MMR works great because in quick play you're just trying to have fun, and the game's trying to put you in a balanced game where you have fun. Excellent. But here in competitive, it's not just about having good matches, because the truth is, you're going to end up, right? The game's forcing you into, not forcing you, but the game's, the direction is that at your skill, it's going to lead you to a point where you're at a 50% win rate. And then there, to climb out of that is where you have to make an improvement, you know, to get out of it. Your MMR has to go up. You need to make a change to get you out of there. And you reach this gap and you're stuck here and you're like, okay, I've reached the ceiling in my skill. This is my rank. And then, okay, I'm going to break that ceiling and go up. And you want that accurately represented when you look at your skill. I was in gold. I broke through. I was in gold for X amount of time. I finally broke into platinum. Oh man, I got better. I did something to break through so that I broke over that 50%. But am I really? Because maybe there's a player in gold that has a higher MMR than me. There's this RNG of matchmaking and skill ratings and what affected. Because I'm pretty sure, it's not a fact here, but you know, I'm going to lean towards that the rating, that how your rating is affected between matches also is affected by the rating of the players you're with and playing against. So this is RNG. If you're playing at a time where there's less players and the average player has a lower MMR than you, right? Your MMR might not go up that much, but your skill rating will, you know. And then someone plays in peak hours where there's more people of their level or higher, and if they break through and win, their MMR is going to go way higher, even with the same number of games won. I know that sounds a little complicated. I'm gonna get better with maybe next time I realize. Maybe I'll put up paint and we'll draw this out so that we get a clear picture of it. But there's just a little bit of RNG when it comes to your skill rating, you know, and your MMR, right? Because a matchmaker, like I said, the rate that your MMR goes up is probably affected by the matchmaker, and we know that there's RNG in the matchmaker, depending on the number of players on and the level that you're at. So it just feels weird, you know. Now, here's the tech, guys. Before I go, last one. Here's the tech. When somebody says, well, I'm plat, you're just gold. You just say, well, I mean, looking at this game, that might be true, but my MMR is probably way higher than yours. Who knows, right? But you could say that. It's true. You can be better. You could actually be rated by the game better than they are. You just can't see it. Well, thanks for sticking around. Please hit all those buttons below. Subscribe, like, comment, bell. Is there anything else? all the YouTube buttons. And take care. Keep on gaming.